Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. This is probably going to be the greatest show in the history of the Fishing Guide Podcast because of the lighting. We're at Blue Bank Resort here on Reelfoot Lake, and it is absolutely crazy gorgeous. Pretty excited about it. Not only that, I happen to have someone who I haven't fished with yet, and I'm super excited about it. His dad's always trying to get me to go fishing, and now I get to go fishing with Matt. Matt, tell him who you are, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Matt Outlaw. I'm the son of Whitey Outlaw. Everybody knows him.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time crappie guide on Santee Cooper. My guide business is Outlaw Outdoors Guide Service.
Uh-huh.
So I guide year-round for crappie.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So let's just break down Santee Cooper when it comes to crappie fishing. Is it really good in the spring and then okay the rest of the time of the year and then it gets good again in the winter?
Santee's an amazing lake. It's a big lake. It's an intimidating lake. I mean, I fished on it my whole life, and it still intimidates me. It can be the best fishery in the world, but it can also whip your butt.
Oh.
But it's got world-class fish. It's got 3-pounders. We've got a lot of big black crappie in that lake.
Really?
Yep. It's the springtime. Springtime's good fishing everywhere, but
right.
To be honest with you, my favorite time to fish it's in the summertime. That's the most
Really?
consistent time of the year. I mean, the fish they're in the same areas through the whole summer. They don't move.
Weather's more consistent then?
Weather's more consistent. It's hot. You don't have a whole lot of people fishing in the summertime.
Right.
But the fish are on brush, and they stay there. They don't go nowhere. They sit right there. You can catch them day in, day out.
Talk about the brush. Is it brush that you're bringing in, or is it brush that is like put in by the state? How does that get put in there?
The state puts in some brush. I put in a lot of brush myself, and you find a lot of brush. With electronics, you find a lot.
Right.
And there's also a lot of structure. That lake it's a lot like Reelfoot. It's got a lot of natural structure in it. So you can utilize your electronics, and you can find all the structure you need to find.
Oh, I gotcha. So, when it comes to fishing in the fall, what happens then? Do they scatter? Do you get some?
Like right now, they're kind of transitioning from their summer pattern to the fall pattern, and what they do is a lot of times they get off your shallower brush and they're moving to deep brush, like 20, 30 foot of water, and they're staging up on it. If you find deep brush with fish on this time of year, you normally find big numbers. I'm talking about schools of a few hundred fish.
Wow.
Yeah, this time of year right here really does get amazing, and the fish start getting thick, they start getting healthy. They're feeding up, fattening up for the wintertime. So this is a really good time to catch good quality fish.
Right. And so, are you single poling? Is it pretty much? Is that what you're doing when you're guiding, or does it depend on the client?
Most 9% of the time I single pole. We do a lot of casting. Jigs. We do a lot of vertical jigging. Do a lot of slip cork. I mean, I utilize slip corks on brush a lot. That's easy fishing, and it really is a very effective way to catch them, especially this time of year when they're congregated on brush.
Let's talk a little bit about slip cork. So tell us the whole from the hook to the cork to the bobber stop. Tell us how you rig it up.
I start off. I typically use a number 4 bait hook, and a split shot.
Okay.
You have your cork. I like a Thiel cork.
Right.
Then you just got your bobber stopper. It's simple, and it goes back old school, but it's still a very effective way to catch them.
And what do you use them for? Line and your rod.
I use most time I use a 8-pound slime line, and I use a 8-foot Catch the Fever casting rod.
I gotcha. Let's talk about that slime line. Unless you got something else to talk about a float, we'll go to slime line. What's up with that?
That's a line that sponsors us, and my dad, he come out with the championship edition, which is the super stretch line, which is a great line. It's got 30% more stretch. It's a monofilament line.
Okay.
It stretches, but not only does it stretch, it also recoils. So you hook a fish on it, it's like putting him on a spring. He can't get off. Right,
so that keeps the tension on.
It keeps the tension. It takes crappie's got thin mouths, is what they call them, paper mouths. It takes that tension. It allows the fish to pull on it. It's like having an extra drag on an extra drag. I mean, it's like putting him on a spring. He can pull, but he can't rip himself off. So once you get the hook in him, he's not going nowhere.
I gotcha. Talk a little bit about your pole length and if you're one pulling or if you're casting using 2 different rods.
Yeah. Normally when I cast jigs, I like a 6 to 7 foot precision cast rod with and I normally use either a 4 or 6 pound slime line.
Gotcha.
Like I said, with slip corking, I like to go to a little bit longer rod. I like to use an 8 foot rod and a little bit heavier line, 8 pound. Then if I vertical jig, I use a 12 foot jig rod. And a lot of times jigging, I use heavier. I like a 10 pound when I'm vertical jigging, because most time when you're jigging down in the brush.
Right.
And you want to have line that's strong enough to, if you get hung up or the fish gets hung down in it, you can force them out of the brush.
I gotcha. So you're one pulling almost all the time.
99% of the time, I have one pole in my hand.
Let's talk about your boat setup. So if the client would come to you and they were fishing, what would they expect when they get in your boat?
We sit side by side.
Okay.
Just like I always have, and I have the live scope up front, obviously. And I just pretty much coach them where to throw it.
Right.
And it takes a little bit of, especially if people have never seen live scope before, it takes them a little bit of getting used to them, because the most important thing when you're fishing like that is accuracy. You have to hit your target. You can't just flip it out there. You're actually aiming at an individual fish that you have to flip it to.
Right.
It takes a lot of coaching, but working through them, that's what I'm there for.
Right. And so do you have blades in the back or something to slow you up, or trolling motors in the back like people are doing now to get you to stop that drift?
Right now, I just got a new boat, so I don't have power poles on it yet. They are coming, but I do like to use the drift paddles with those. On brush, you don't use them as much, but if you're, like, say I'm open water fishing, looking for suspended fish, I do utilize the paddles a lot. I'll have my trolling motor on 100 searching, and when I see a fish, instead of turning the trolling motor around backwards to slow down, I'll just put the paddles down, and that slows me down enough to get where I need to get.
Talk about wind, because I'm guessing Santee Cooper, every once in a while it gets a little windy. How do you work around when you're taking people out and catching crappie with the wind?
Santee's big, and the wind is a huge. That's really the most important factor you have. That's
really.
You have to watch the wind, and the good thing about it being so big is that there's so many areas that you can fish to get out of the wind.
Right.
So it's very important. I always watch. I don't ever commit to my guide party and where we're going until the night before, because I always like to look at the wind the night before, and that determines where I'm going fishing the next day. Because there's some areas, if you got a north wind, there's some areas you can't fish in a north wind, and it's you get, but like I said, it's so big. There's a lot of places you can move around and get out of the wind as well.
Right. So let's talk about zones, because the depth of water that you're fishing in, how does that change in the seasons?
When you get in
let's start with spring. Yeah.
Spring. The spring, your fish are going to be, they're going to be moving in shallow. Your males, obviously your males, they're going to go to the bank first. They're going to make the beds. Your females are going to be sitting out in a little bit deeper water.
Okay.
Until the time's right. Then they go in and they lay their eggs. And once they lay their eggs, they're gone. They come back out and they sit out in that deep water. Your males are going to stay on the bank until the eggs hatch. Then they'll ease on. Then you get into, the springtime's good fishing. Anybody can catch them in the springtime. Then my favorite time is after the spring. It's when the summer comes.
Right.
The summer's, like I said earlier, is the most consistent time to me, especially for black crappie, because when they get done with the spawn, they go back out and they sit on brush. And it's not just deep brush. They'll sit on shallow brush. When I say shallow brush, some of it's in 5 foot of water.
Wow.
5, and you still got fish that's gonna be sitting on brush in 30 foot of water. They'll be in, they'll be everywhere, but they'll be on structure, and they'll stay on that structure.
I gotcha.
And like I said, they'll stay on it all summer. They won't go nowhere. They'll be consistent, no matter how hot it gets.
Right.
Then you get into the fall, and like I said, your shallower brush, they'll leave it and they'll move out and deeper, and they'll sit in that. They'll be congregated on the deeper brush. And this time of year when you really can see huge numbers of fish. Like if you got brush in 30 foot of water this time of year, you might pull up on it and there could be 400 or 500 fish sitting on that one brush pile.
Wow.
Then they stay on that until about January. Then they start. You'll still have some fish that'll be on the brush, but they start easing off, spreading out, and they're getting ready for the springtime again, and then the whole pattern starts over again.
Do you chase roamers out in the shad that are out there?
I love open water fish. Is probably my favorite way to catch them.
Tell them about roamers. So we can tell you that in case you don't know what a roamer is, it's usually a crappie that's following groups of shad, and they're good ones, right?
Oh yeah, they're good. You see that you mostly see that in the winter and spring, in the springtime, and they're not always just chasing shad. Sometimes they're just sitting out there, they're just sitting still. That's when they're fun. When they're sitting, you go out there and you find them and they're just sitting dead still. Yeah. When they're sitting out in the open water, the bite rate is so much better, because you think about it, they're sitting out there for a reason. They're not just sitting out there. They're sitting out there because they are feeding. Right. So if you get that jig in front of them, you have a much higher success rate of getting him to bite versus if he was sitting on a piece of structure.
So what's your rig? What's your setup for catching roamers? What's your lure? Lure color?
Most of the time, I like casting jigs. I use a 16th ounce Rockport rattlehead with a crappie monster jig. The color, it isn't really that important to me. I do personally like something that's got chartreuse in it. Oh, all right. But it's most of the time the biggest thing is profile and putting it in front of his face. That's the most important. Accuracy is the most important thing. Yeah. What kind of profile are you using? Anything. You're not using not a curl tail grub. I don't like a curl tail drag. I like more of a straight tail. Okay. Jig, all right. Something that's got action, but it doesn't have a huge amount of action. I don't want to overpower it. I just want something. I like a more subtle approach. Right. But like I said, the biggest thing is accuracy. If they're sitting out in the middle, you put that jig on them, you have a very good chance of getting him to bite most of the time. And what's the distance you're usually casting to then? The furthest would probably be 40 foot. Between the 20 and 40 foot range is what I like to do. I will do it closer, but 20 and 40 foot's that's a good range. That's a good cast, and I'm pretty accurate at that cast. All right. Well, that sounds good. That takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. Of course, they make a complete line of hard and soft baits. They even have Vanguard Tackle now, which is terminal tackle, which includes everything from tools to clippers. They got snail hooks. They got everything that's like that. So you can check them out on PicoLures.com. Hey, if they wanted to go fishing with you, much like I get to tomorrow, don't be jealous because I got my camera. I'm still working. But how would they contact you? They can call me on my cell phone, which is 803-413-8236, or they can message me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Outlaw Outdoors Guide Service. And what town, where's kind of the location that they're going to have to find lodging at? The town of Santee, and we do offer lodging at my dad's place, and we for people that's coming out of town, we do offer lodging as well. And give it a plug. What's the name of it? Well, it's associated to my business. Okay, so if they contact you to get lodging and a guide, they contact me to get lodging and a guide, and it's actually staying at my dad's place, so he actually cooks supper for you and everything. So I was going there. I was wondering, hey, do you cook? So you don't cook? No, I just fish. He handles the cooking. I like that idea right there. That I'd rather do that. I'd rather come home and eat tuna out of a can and fish an extra hour than come home and cook someone a meal. That's right. So that's good stuff. So that's pretty awesome because now they can get it all there. That's right. So that's really good. They come there and stay, and I pick them up in the morning, and we go fishing. Yeah, so they're getting the best of that deal, that's for sure. Hey, like I always like to say, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.